So I have worked with the Creatures Tarot for like a month now, and I want to share my own experience with the deck and how it read for me. But first, I want to give a shout out to Katey Flowers for initially creating her Tarot and Practice series. She created the series like a year or two ago. Her Tarot and Practice series was a series where she would take a deck from her collection and she would just consistently read with it over a month and do exercises with it and just share her readings in a video. So that's always been one of my favorite series, and I always knew that if I ever made a YouTube channel, I would want to make my own version of that Tarot and Practice series. So here's my own take on Tarot and Practice, Tarot in my practice, the first deck being the Creatures Tarot. So let me tell you about this deck while I get it open. So the Creatures Tarot is created by Sara Kathleen. You can find it on her website here, sarakathleen.co.uk. It was fulfilled on Kickstarter earlier this year, so I got a copy because it just spoke to me. It got delivered in April, it's now June, and I've got to read with it for like a couple months, honestly. So the deck comes in this 2-piece box, as you can see, and what's interesting about this deck is that it has a second set of major arcana. So the Fool to the World, there is an alternate set of major arcana. I believe this is an optional thing, so I don't remember if you have to buy this separately or if it's included. I think it's optional. I chose to buy it because I thought, why not? These are the 2 extra cards that come with the deck, the Journey and the Belief cards. Here is the first set of the major arcana. Well, I say first. Here is one set of the major arcana. Here is another set. So I've already gone through and like swapped my favorite major arcana. So this is the ones that I'm choosing to keep. These are the ones that I've set aside for, I don't know, for some other use. So over the past couple months, I did a lot of readings with the Creatures Tarot. I actually wasn't planning on it. I was trying to use other decks in this like fairy tale storybook kind of theme, but they just didn't end up working out for me. So I ended up using this deck to do just readings with. I was kind of lazy to swap out decks, so I just ended up keeping this one on my table, and I just reached for this whenever I felt like doing a reading. So what I find really amazing about this deck is it just has a whole air of spaciousness. There's a whole spacious vibe to this deck. I love that the premise of this deck is that there's no human figures. There's not really animals. They're just all creatures. They're all kind of shapeless and indistinguishable. I don't think that's the right word. They're just these kind of shapeless creatures. They're not really tied to any specific animal that we know. I mean, a couple of them do have tentacles, kind of like octopi, but they're just creatures. And because of that, I just found this deck really approachable and honestly just really easy to read with. The best kind of readings I found that this deck works for is readings where I'm talking with my shadow, or I'm just talking about topics that are a bit difficult for me to wrap my head around. So I would consider this like, I hate to use this word, but a hug deck. A comforting sort of deck because the colors are very bright. You can see this one here. The colors are they're very bright. They're very vivid, and yet it's not very, it's not in a garish way. The colors, they communicate the story of the card well. The creatures themselves, because they're genderless, they're not, tied to any human attributes. It's very easy for me to just read them very neutrally, so they give a very neutral vibe. I feel like it's pretty easy to feel like I'm unbiased or neutral with this reading. It's neutral, but it's not cold, I guess. It's neutral, yet I find it very comforting. The faceless creatures still have a lot of expressions through their body language and occasionally through their eyes as well. I really like that there are different shapes and sizes of these creatures, like the Nine of Pentacles, this little beanie baby here, this tiny one. There's a 3 of Swords, not one of my favorite cards, but we have just kind of a regular sized creature here. We have some of these small ones. I feel like the size of the creature here definitely helps tell the story of the card. This gives me the idea of a transition, but it's just when you feel small and you don't really know what's going on, you don't feel large and in charge. That's definitely what the 6 of Swords can feel like to me. Compared to this creature, it being larger and like still struggling to hold all these really big wands. It just speaks to me in a way that I completely did not expect. Something else I have to say about this deck is that I kind of feel like this is my inner child deck, and I don't use that term too much for my own practice in my own life, but I do feel like this is my version of an inner child deck. And I actually made a whole video explaining my ideas and my thoughts and my experiences with Inner Child, but I'll link that down below in the description. But yeah, this just feels like an Inner Child deck to me because it just leaves me room to contemplate. It's a very contemplative deck. That's the word I mean to use, contemplative. So it's just very spacious, contemplative. It gives me room to think about what it might mean. It gives me room to imagine and just think on it a bit more. I really like the Page of Pentacles. It's so cute, just holding up his little coin, and it's in this field of beautiful little flowers. It's a really cute card. Yeah, do I have any gripes about this deck? That Three of Swords, not my favorite. I feel like it could have been a lot more, a lot more descriptive than it was. Besides that, I've only worked with it for a month, so I feel like if I were to work with it even longer, I might find more things. But the month that I've had with it, the dozen or so readings I've done with it, I have found really enjoyable, and I can't wait to pull this out again in the future and just continue to do more readings with it. This feels like an Inner Child sort of deck because even the body language just feels a little bit childish to me in a way that just does not feel condescending. It feels, I don't know, it just feels like what my inner landscape, how I might imagine myself in my mind to be. I love this dragon in the King of Wands card. I know I've always wanted to be a dragon, and it just feels like this kind of dragon is like exactly how I would imagine myself looking. This Ten of Swords came up in a reading for me recently, and my goodness, it was very powerful. I love the simplicity, the contrast between the solid color creatures and the color, the things that it's interacting with. I like the mix that there are some cards that do feature like creatures, and there are some cards that only feature like the little hand or the little tentacle. I will say some of the court cards are a little bit of a struggle, especially the queens and the kings. If you're not really familiar with tarot or with court cards, you might find these a little bit hard to read with. But I have found that when these cards do come up in a reading, I'm able to kind of imagine and project and just kind of make up a story to help me understand the essence of this card and what it means to me in this reading. So I will say, as a study deck, it didn't work as a study sort of deck or as a learning sort of deck, but somehow I can just feel it like speaking to me, which I think is a really wonderful thing. So that is a quick flip through of the Creatures Tarot. Okay, so real quick, I pulled out some of my favorite cards from the deck, and I just wanted to show you some of my favorite cards from the Creatures Tarot. So here is the Empress. Love this creature with the lush field, little magic wand here. This card definitely just exemplifies what it feels like for my inner child. I used to pretend to be Sailor Moon, and I loved waving that like imaginary stick around, and this Empress just feels a lot like that Sailor Moon character. The Hermit. Love this just little peaceful looking guy, peaceful looking person, creature in the stars and the trees. The Star, very similar vibes here. Love the idea of the star just shining its way, and all you can do is just look up and admire it with our little tentacles. The Moon, this is one of the funniest cards I've ever seen. Just the image of this little pal just hanging around on the moon here. So cute. Judgment is a card that I always look for in a tarot deck because this is one of my favorite tarot cards. This idea of like, remember who you are. There's just a lot of ideas or thoughts or things I could contemplate when I imagine what this creature might be thinking as they're looking at their reflection. And I love that the Judgment idea here is like we're at the bottom here just kind of contemplating our lives, our existences, when the whole wide world is in front of us or ahead of us. There's just a lot of feeling for me here in just this one card. So now just some of the majors. The Page of Wands, love this cute little one. I also pulled out a different page here, the Page of Pentacles. Oh my god, they're just so cute, so adorable. I love that this looks like a sun, but on second look, it's more just the light and the energy and the glow radiating from this page right here. So it just feels like a lot of energy and inspiration and warmth and all that good stuff just coming out from the Page of Wands. I love that feeling. And there's a little bit of that glow here too in the Page of Pentacles. I love, it just feels like, look ma, look what shiny thing I found. They're so cute. This is one of my favorite. Normally in the Ten of Cups, I see this idea of a rainbow and some family or some couple just holding hands and looking extremely happy. And I feel like for that reason, it's hard for people to see the Ten of Cups as a possibly neutral or even a negative card. And I find that that neutrality or possible negativity just comes through so well in this Ten of Cups. This recently came up in a reading for me, and I interpreted it as, just having to be okay with ending a chapter as happy as that chapter was, because there's kind of a limit to the good feelings that may have come from that chapter. So we just have to be able to close that chapter, give it good closure, and like kind of continue on to the next one. So I really love that interpretation of the Ten of Cups here. Eight of Pentacles, I like the body language here. I don't know, I like it. And this Four of Cups, again, I just really love the way that spaciousness has been used here, where this creature just feels very small and possibly insignificant. And I love that they're like kind of focusing on just these cups. When there's like a whole tree that's kind of giving them shelter, there's a whole sky. It just feels like a very gloomy card. And the fact that the creature is just small here in the context of the whole card just makes a lot of sense to me. So those are some of my favorite cards. Okay, and here is a quick shuffle demonstration because I know that's what I always like to see. It feels like it's printed on the same cardstock as like makeplayingcards.com, so it's a very smooth, like playing card type of cardstock. And it overhand shuffles really well as well. The cards are standard tarot size. Real quick, let me try doing a quick little 3-card reading for the collective here. So let's just draw 3 cards, a message for the collective. We've got Knight of Swords. All right, what's the Knight of Swords telling us? We've got the Nine of Cups. What's the Nine of Cups got to say? Ah, the Fool. So, the Knight of Swords, the Nine of Cups, and the Fool. I am very much noticing the color differences between the orange here and the blues. Get the oranges here and the blues as well. So, something I see with the Nine of Cups in the center card is something about emotional fulfillment. I get the sense that Knight of Swords, speaking up on something that has been important to you, is going to help you be more emotionally fulfilled. And it's going to release whatever you might have been holding on to that stopped you from speaking out loud. And it's going to help you open your heart up to this Fool energy. The Fool energy of being free, feeling lighter, feeling like you're able to just let go of the baggage behind and move on to something new. I feel like that is a quick message that is just what's necessary here. And I feel like that is a relatively simple reading, but I feel like that's all that really needs to be said. I don't really feel the need to read too deeply into any of these cards because the images just kind of speak for themselves and it just gives me something very easy to read with. Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how quickly I got that message from the Creatures Tarot. So that is the little reading for the collective. I hope that this message helps someone out there. So now I'm going to show some clips of some readings that I did and wanted to record and show on camera. I will say, I don't know if this video has enough views for me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. I don't need any reinterpretations or like diagnosing or anyone to reinterpret my readings for me. I got out of my readings what I needed in the moment, so I don't need those readings to be like reinterpreted or like, I don't know, to be told I'm reading the wrong way or something. So yeah, on to the next reading. Hi. Okay, so I just did this A Conversation with My Fear spread by Emerald Lotus Divination, and I just thought it was very profound, and so I thought I would record it and just kind of talk through it for myself and for perhaps anyone watching. I don't know if I'll publish this, but anyway. So this is A Conversation with My Fear. The prepositions are: this card best describes my greatest fear, why this is my greatest fear, how this fear holds me back, what I need to learn about this fear, and how I can face this fear. I just felt like this deck would be interesting to work with for this month, so I thought I would give it a whirl, and for this first reading, it is pretty hard-hitting and also pretty calming for me. Currently, I've just been having a lot of stressors with family stuff. I just came back from a trip to the East Coast visiting other family, and even though it gave me a lot of great memories and a sense of closer connection with certain family members, and my own dad especially, I also feel like it raised more questions about who I am and who I want to be, and how my relationship with my dad is going. It's just very confusing. And I've also learned new things about my mom that are not really great to learn about. It's just a whole confusing time, unfortunately. And also in the context of wedding planning, there's just always a fear of not doing the right thing with wedding planning. This is important, and at the same time, I don't want it to feel so direly important anyway. So that's the mindset that I was going into with this conversational spread about my fear. So again, I did find this reading extremely helpful. So I wanted to walk through the positions and the spread and just share it here for you guys. So what card best describes my greatest fear? The King of Cups. I see this card. First of all, we see a squid holding a cup here. I feel like the imagery here is relatively simple, but I feel like it's enough for me to kind of go off of. This best describes my greatest fear right now, because I have a fear that I'm not putting enough emotional effort into my whole general family issue or my wedding issue, just my whole family issue / situation. I'm worried that I'm not putting in enough emotional effort. I'm worried that I'm not taking enough charge of the situation and not, I don't know, commanding everything and helping everyone mediate, or helping everyone muddle through their own feelings. And yet I'm also worried of putting in too much effort or energy or consideration into this issue. Basically, I just don't really have an emotional handle on the situation, and my greatest fear is that because I'm not emotionally handling this for everyone, that makes me kind of a useless person. That goes into my next card here. Why this is my greatest fear. Well, I'll just read what I wrote for my notes. I'm scared that bad things happen because I didn't put enough effort to prevent them from happening, or I didn't put enough effort to care for people beforehand. The Hanged Man, literally the first thing that comes to mind for why this was my greatest fear was that, if I'm not doing this energy, if I'm not handling everything, my fear is that I'm going to be seen as powerless and or choosing to do nothing when I totally could have done something to prevent or help the situation. And on the flip side of this fear, on the one hand, I'm scared that I am the cause of bad things happening because I didn't do enough preventative care for them. But at the same time, I'm also scared that whatever I do, I might end up making things worse, and it might be better for me to stay out of things. So literally the fear is that I'm damned if I do and I'm damned if I don't. And that's the nature of anxiety and history of people pleasing and enmeshment and not trusting yourself, a lot of issues that I'm always working through. But the Hanged Man, the King of Cups, is a very interesting visual difference and thematic difference here. The third card I got here is how this fear holds me back, the Knight of Cups. So after mulling on this for a little bit, what I ended up with is since I place so much effort and pressure on myself to try to be the king in every situation, it stops me from, I guess, living in the moment, living my own life, allowing myself to be young and fallible and to enjoy life one step at a time, one night's quest at a time. I think from a young age, I've always expected myself to be on top of things. And I feel like those were expectations that were also placed upon me as well. I always did seem like the most put together of the family, of the group, of the class, and it's just something that I sometimes pride myself on, but sometimes I hold myself to that role very seriously as well. But holding myself to a king position or a king, role all the time, it stops me from just being a knight. It stops me from being adolescent, from being fallible, from learning things, making mistakes. So it's definitely a fear that holds me back here. I love the romantic aspect of the Knight of Cups too. I think there's a certain romance to life that we all need because, I think we need to romanticize our lives a little bit. I mean, obviously it's my opinion. I need to romanticize my life a little bit because if I don't have romance in my life, and I'm not just talking about romance in relationships, but just romance in loving life, and appreciating life. If I don't romanticize my life a little bit, life might seem or become very dull and dry and just methodical. So I'd like to live a life where I feel a bit romantic and I feel happy and I feel alluring. And I feel like there's things that I would love to learn and learn to love and things like that. So moving on to the next two positions. This one is what I need to learn about this fear. And lastly, how can I face this fear? This spread or this reading was like incredible. I feel like as soon as I was just writing down the notes for all my stuff and writing down my interpretations, it just came to me super, super clearly. And I don't know if that's because my clearest readings are sometimes like at night before I go to bed, or if it's this deck, or if it's this spread, or whatever, but it's all culminating very clearly to me right now. So the 10 of Cups, what I need to learn about this fear. Again, this fear of like putting pressure on myself to be put together emotionally. So what I wrote here was that this fear comes from a desire for a perfect life. And, you know, I associate the 10 of Cups with like a perfect life, permanent happiness kind of thing. And I really love that, like, it's all in the clouds right here. I'll just read what I wrote specifically because I think I wrote that best. This fear comes from a desire for a perfect life or a perfect state of being, a desperation even. What if I remembered that this perfect state does not actually exist? And even if it did, it would only last for a moment before entropy or chaos takes over again. And then there's a new normal to adjust to. So I think this is really illuminating for my fear because with anxiety and perfectionism, like the fear or the desire is that I want to create things. I want to make things so that they're perfect. I want things to become perfect and never need maintenance or care or adjusting again. And realistically, truly realistically, that is just absolutely impossible. It's just impossible to live a perfect life. It's impossible to have relationships that are clear-cut and easy and will never need maintenance or adjusting again. With my dad, I have not spoken to him or been very close to him ever since I moved out after college. So it's been like 6 years that I really haven't talked much to my dad at all. And now that our lives are crossing and overlapping a little bit again with wedding planning and also with the divorce, like this is a big deal that I am constantly adjusting to. And I think I keep forgetting that it takes time for me to adjust to these things. And I cannot expect this relationship to become like perfect and clear and, you know, easy. Nothing about maintaining a relationship is easy, especially when you are a child of immigrants, and especially when those immigrants are immigrants because of a freaking war. So I just have to keep giving myself patience. And that leads me to my last card here, how I can face this fear. Basically, the advice that I'm getting here is just to have patience and also just trust only in my next steps. The things that are going to happen, big picture or at the end of the road, are unclear to me right now. It's a bit of high priestess vibes right there. But I feel like all I can do right now is just take things one step at a time. Just focus on what I do have right now and focus on nourishing that and taking care of that one thing in front of me right now. So even though I might not know all the details of how this wedding thing is going to play out with our different family dynamics, even though I don't know how exactly my relationship with my dad is going to look in many years from now, in a year from now, even a month from now, all I can do is just focus on the next step. And in addition to this Knight of Cups thing, I need to just give myself a break from trying to be emotionally put together, like 100% put together. I just need to accept and roll with the punches that some days are going to be messy, some feelings are going to be messy. All I can do is care for them in the moment and not try to expect myself to be a king right now. Right now, my role is to just be a child, to just be a person figuring things out as I go. So I felt like after I did the spread and wrote about it and really thought about it and breathed through it, I feel a lot calmer through this spread. So I'm really grateful to Emerald Lotus Divination for creating this spread about fear. And you know, this Creatures Tarot turned out to be really good. While I'm here, I'm going to draw one more Oracle card because why not? It's just a nice little wrap-up message and then I'll just go to bed for the night. All right, this one kind of popped out. So, one day she woke up and decided to tell her story. Here are French and Spanish translations. Un jour, elle se réveilla et décidait de raconter son histoire. So the thing that pops out to me most right now is I'm not here to tell my dad's story or my family's story. I'm here to live and tell my own story. I'm here to figure out what it is in my life that I find important. What do I want to make of my life and my time here? And, that's my story to tell. It's my story to live. So I'm just going to put that right there. So, yeah, amazing. Cool. Thank you. So, another reading that I did was using the Inner Child Dialoguing Spread by Christine Rose L. Since I already made a whole video about this, I didn't want to just put the whole video again in here, so I'll just show a couple clips from the reading and put the video link in the description and just share that this Inner Child Dialoguing Spread was super helpful. It was a spread where I basically had to dialogue between my current adult self and my inner child self and just kind of get a handle on what my inner child might be needing that I'm not getting from it. And just get to know my inner child better, like what they like, what they hope for, what they would only tell their best friend, things like that. I found the reading really hopeful and very nourishing, which I completely did not expect. So definitely please watch that video if you're interested in any sort of inner child work. And now onto another clip of another reading that I did. Hey there. So this is the liminal space reading, or the liminal space spread. This spread is by C Light Tarot on Instagram, and I'll put the link to the spread in the description, and the Instagram handle should also be popped up on the screen there. So this liminal space reading was pretty cool. The premise or the topic of the liminal space reading is that I feel like I'm in some sort of transition phase right now, transitional space, transitional energy, because some people really close to me are getting ready to move away for school, and I've just been feeling a lot of feelings about it. And so while I'm getting ready to help send them off and spend some last meaningful moments with them in person, physically, I have felt like I'm in some sort of liminal space because I'm in the space of trying to hold on to the good memories and the feelings, and also trying to release those feelings so that I can also be open to things coming forward for us in the future as they move away and as our relationship just grows and changes. I especially just want to support them while they're, going to school to further their education and to further their careers. And, it's just always an exciting thing to move away to a new place. And I just want to be able to make space to honor that instead of being only sad and a little bit selfish about like, oh, why can't they stay with me? So that's why I sought out this liminal space spread, liminal space reading, and I just thought it was super cool. And the Creatures Tarot was just a cool deck to use for that. So the spread or the reading goes like this. So first we're going to lay out a single card in the center that you've chosen from the deck. So you just have to go through the deck and intentionally choose a card or multiple cards, and then eventually narrow it down to choose one card for the center. This center card represents the liminal space that you're in. So the center card that I chose, the liminal space that I'm in, is the Ten of Cups. And I chose this card because it seems to represent the three of us, me and the two people close to me. It just feels like a last hurrah, and it kind of gives me the energy of, like the rainbow kind of reaching onward here. It gives me the idea of there's more along this way, but I identify most with like this creature on the right here, kind of looking back this way, and these other two are literally looking forward this way. It just feels so like, I don't know, fateful. And this card just feels so accurate, so resonant with me right now. And it just feels like all of these 10 cups, it feels like, we've kind of done all we can right here. We've kind of filled all of the cups there were to fill right here. And it's just, there's just not much that we can do together now. They're just ready to move on to a new chapter. And I feel like I'm in this space of like celebrating the things that we've done together and that we've made together here, and kind of getting ready to say goodbye and to send them off. And this being the 10 of Cups just feels extremely fitting. Being a 10, the number of endings and getting ready for new beginnings, things like that. So this 10 of Cups, it just perfectly captures the perhaps somber. I don't know, the whole mix of feelings I'm feeling in this liminal space. So that's the center card that I chose intentionally. And then the two cards, you have to draw two cards from the deck randomly. Cards 2 and 3, they're going to represent the the two areas you're between in this liminal space. And so the two cards that came up for me were the Hierophant and the Star. So these were the two areas that I'm kind of in between in this liminal space. Something that the spread emphasizes is to not assign meanings to this right away, just kind of let the images and the nuances speak to you. So trying not to think about too much like the meaning, the rote definitions of the cards. I noticed that the Hierophant, this owl seems pretty lonely, to be honest. Like, well, I guess they're both kind of solitary in their cards, but the owl just gives me the sense of a bit of darkness, a bit of like almost melancholy, almost like wanting the night to continue being nighttime. Whereas the Star, it just feels ready to welcome in a new idea. And even though the star is something far away, it's something intangible, you can't really, touch the star or hold the star, it's still there. The fact that, that the star is out there, the star can represent someone's soul or your connection, or just some sort of inspiration out there. This idea of looking forward and looking up and out and using the stars like inspiration or just a moment of peace is, I don't know, I just found that really inspiring in a way. The idea of like a new dawn coming versus like this card continuing to just be nighttime, I just noticed things like that here. So the next two cards that you draw, or that I drew, are the Two of Pentacles and the Four of Cups. So the bottom card here is a challenge that I'm experiencing in this liminal space, and the Four of Cups is a blessing. So a challenge and a blessing from this liminal space. So also these cards should be flipped down here. Okay, so a challenge and a blessing. A challenge, the Two of Pentacles, with the idea of flexibility or being able to balance and juggle. I definitely found the idea of having to be able to hold multiple different potentially contrasting feelings at once. So, I can be sad that they're moving away, and also I can be happy that they're moving away, that our memories and our lives get to change, as we move forward. I think an important challenge that I have to acknowledge is the idea of flexibility. So sometimes I can be a little bit stubborn and I can be a little bit resistant to change. Even if I know that change might be good, it might be necessary, even if I know that, there's nothing more that we can do together now, like it's still hard for me to, fully accept the change of people moving away. Like this is not the first, people I've loved who have had to move away. Like I've gone through just, parental divorce. My parents are moving into different areas, and one of my good friends moved away to the East Coast last year. Like it's just a lot. It's hard for me to let go of people moving away and our relationship kind of changing like that. But that sort of flexibility has definitely been a challenge, but it's good to see that acknowledged here so that I can, acknowledge it and just work with these feelings. And the Four of Cups is a blessing. This was an interesting card. Honestly, I'm still not 100% sure what to make of this. I think something that I did write down from this card, the Four of Cups as a blessing, was that I guess it does make me grateful for the people and the things and the experiences that I do have in front of me. Because even though things may seem a little bit dismal and gray and a little bit gloomy, the fact is that I still have, people around me that I still am able to spend time with. And I am able to sit with my feelings and just acknowledge that this is just a part of life. This idea of this character, this creature just sitting here, sitting with their feelings, that is an important blessing that I need to acknowledge as a person. Like the fact that I am able to feel things, the fact that I am able to feel a full spectrum of emotions and deal with these changes, like that is a blessing that I'm going to appreciate, because if I wasn't able to feel feelings, like I would just be living my life as a robot and I just wouldn't be as human as I am now. So that's kind of a blessing there. So those are the center cards that you draw. And then what I did next is I drew a card for each corner. And the spread says you draw a card for each corner. And these cards kind of represent like the intersections of of the spread here, which I thought was interesting, and I haven't done that too much before. So out of these four corners, you kind of look at the spread and you decide like which intersection speaks the most to you right now. For example, do I feel like the Hierophant and dealing with the blessing is most important or most relevant, or do I feel like the Star and the blessing of Four of Cups is the most relevant? For me, I chose the Star, this area that I'm moving into, and the Two of Pentacles as a challenge. I felt like engaging with this challenge, this obstacle for me was more important. And the card that I flipped over that appeared was the Ten of Swords. And gosh, another 10, another ending, another, chapter ending, new beginning, cycle ending, all that stuff. So the Ten of Swords, an action that I'm committed to taking as I move forward in this liminal space. So the Ten of Swords here definitely feels like I really need to come to terms with these feelings and, these sadnesses, these griefs that I have, because it's not fair for me to take out these grievances and lash out at people, because I'm sure that they also have thought much about, the pros and cons of them moving away. This is not something that they're choosing to do lightly. I'm sure that they also find me really important, and I'm sure that they would also hate to leave me behind. But their life is not around me. It's about them. And so as sad as I am to see them go, I just have to make peace with it, because I have to make peace with it, and I have to work with these feelings on my own, with my own people. I can't, put all my grievances on them. That's just not fair to them, so I love the imagery of, it feels like these 10 swords, are like, of course, they're stabbing in, but something else coming out of here is there's a lot of greenery, and that's a lot of blooming foliage on the ground here. I think it would be a very different vibe if the foliage and the greenery was like more dead looking, but it just seems very vibrant and very growing, and it just gives me the idea of a new chapter starting. Like there's new things coming, and there's going to be a new field of flowers. There's new things growing in this place. So I've also seen the idea of the Ten of Swords. I remember maybe it was Katey Flowers who said this, that it feels like 10 swords being stabbed in is like overkill. So it is possible that this card is reminding me that I may be taking things a little bit more seriously or a bit harder than maybe they have to be. Like, this is not the end of the world, us, kind of moving apart like this. This is just another chance for us to grow a new chapter in our relationship. And, who knows where they're going to end up after the next 1 or 2 years. All I can do is just be ready for the ride and just continue living my own life, and making my own memories, and just finding other things to do and other people to spend time with. So what a fitting card, honestly, the Ten of Swords. So that is my liminal space reading that I did, and I just wanted to share, maybe I'll do a full spread walkthrough in another video, but I at least just wanted to share the imagery from the Creatures Tarot in this video, because it's just, I don't know, I just really appreciate the somber, it's kind of melancholy and also not. I don't really know the exact word to describe it, but I just find it so comforting, and because it's very quiet, it also feels like I can just sit with this more easily, and I can contemplate it more. If you're just very contemplative, that's the word I'm looking for. Contemplative. So that's the liminal space reading I did. So that was a little bit about my month with the Creatures Tarot and a few of the readings that I did. I hope that me sharing these readings was somehow helpful for you, just as the original Tarot in Practice series was super helpful for me. If you have the Creatures Tarot or any other form of a hug deck or an inner child sort of deck for you, I'd love to hear your experiences and how you work with it and how it reads for you. Thank you again to Katey Flowers for your original Tarot in Practice series, and I'm just so happy that I finally got to create my own version of the series, and I hope to make many more videos with other decks, just featuring more readings with them and just sharing, a compilation of how they work for me. So yeah, that's all I got for you today. See you next time. Bye!